don't think that females should be put in leadership positions just because they're female. Women being put into positions of leadership shouldn't happen because they're a quota. It should happen because they're great at what they do.
Hayley Westoby. She's built 2 successful businesses by age 34, a marketing agency and a product company running simultaneously. She's the founder who walked away from corporate twice to build her own table. And she's here to challenge everything you think you know about ambition, wealth, and what actually matters.
My ambition has very much been perceived as aggressive or negative. And even when you say, you've been ambitious across your platforms, I immediately in the back of my head go, oh, he thinks that's a bad thing.
You made this statement recently, I am the table. Unpack that for us.
A video that was circulating in social media that talked about the fact that women shouldn't have to work, which really fires me up. And I do try to bite my tongue at times. I specifically referenced I am the table in relationship to the fact that women traditionally get caregiving roles and men traditionally continue working. The idea that I can build a table that I don't need to bring a seat to or a meal to, that other people want to be part of, is quite powerful.
What's the most ridiculous thing that someone's told you about your ambition?
A guy that I worked with who was my direct report in an advertising agency that will remain unnamed because I have a heart. He left. I was doing his job and my job for about 9 months before they decided to open the role up and hire externally. I applied for the role, and then my managing director at the time pulled me aside and I said, I want to go for that role. And he said, why have you applied? And I was like, because I've been doing this role for the last 9 months. His response to me was, we need to balance out the gender in the team.
Whoa.
I resigned the next day.
What's one thing that you wish someone had told you before you started building that no one talks about?
There's so many things.
Today, I'm joined by Hayley Westoby, a 34-year-old business powerhouse, has already founded a service business and has now also got a product business running simultaneously. She's definitely known for her unknown takes on ambition and what it takes to be successful and build wealth and the life that you want in business. She's a person who's actually doing it, not just talking about it in some woo-woo coaching way. And at the age that she's at, a lot of people are envious of that in the whole age spectrum. Hayley, welcome to Flow Zone.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here as well. Gambit Collective sounds like a hell of a business, especially when it's a sort of pay-as-you-go agency. But I have to launch straight into something else that I've heard you talk about, and it's got to do with your mindset around women having ambition and the desire to work. And you made this statement recently, I am the table. Unpack that for us.
Yeah, look, I mean, for the uninitiated, I think that context of that statement was around a video that was circulating in social media that talked about the fact that women shouldn't have to work, which really fires me up. And I do try to bite my tongue at times, but this idea that women shouldn't have to work, whether it's, that it's an optional extra and it's something that's like nice to have, just completely disregards the fact that women want to work, or that women might have ambition or goals of their own. And so, I made the statement around the fact that there's, and I don't think it's siloed for this particular conversation, but I think that I made the comment around I am the table because there's always these conversations which is like, what do you bring to the table? We're sitting at a table here today. It's like, what do you bring? What value do you have? What do you bring to this relationship? What do you bring to this friendship? What do you bring to this business? Like, it's all about what people bring. And it's like, actually, what about if you were bringing another table into that environment? Like, what if you were bringing the person that has the foundations for your next business to grow, or your next business to step off, or, your relationship to, just take that further step. So the idea of like, I am the table is like, instead of looking at women in particular, not always, but women or people as things that are bought, i.e. chairs to the table or meals to the table, what happens if that person is the table and they are the foundation for, that next step into what the next 5-10 years might look like? And I specifically referenced I am the table in relationship to the fact that women traditionally get caregiving roles, and men traditionally continue working. I'm not going to go into that whole conversation around, the power dynamic and imbalances there and the knock-on effect that happens as a result of that. But for me, when it comes to to that, the idea that I can build a table that I don't need to bring a seat to or a meal to, that other people want to be part of, is quite powerful. And it empowers me to continue doing what I'm doing, to be able to create a table that I want people sitting at, and remove the idea that I have to be good enough to have a seat at a particular table. So I think this idea of changing or flipping the script of, instead of trying to bring a meal or a chair to a table that may or may not accept you for who you are, build your own table.
Yeah, I really like that, the way that you have flipped the script there, because I know what it was like when I first got into business. I'd come out of engineering and I was reasonably esteemed in the role that I was in, but it was a pretty small world. And then when I went into business, and I went really hard early, and I was making huge progress. But I remember going to like developer conventions where all the big wigs are around, and they would literally stand in a circle with their back to everyone else. And I just remember thinking, what have I got to do to get a seat in at this table, or to get into this circle?
Yeah.
And I think, do I just have to suck up to these people? It doesn't feel like it's valuable to me. It doesn't feel like it's too linear. So
yeah, I think like it's something that I've definitely learned, I would say, along the way. I think there has been, and I don't think it's a male and female conversation at all. I think it's just a human problem, that so many people are aspiring to get a seat at a particular table. And and I suppose that's what led me to start my own business, was like, I'm tired of trying to find a seat at the table where I'm respected for who I am at the age that I am, with the skill set that I have and the experience that I have. Why don't I just build my own table and allow others to join that table, because it's a table that I would much rather sit at.
Yeah, that unpacks it well. You are a very ambitious person. You speak about that across all of your platforms. What's the most ridiculous thing that someone's told you about your ambition?
I think early on in my career, to be fair, even to this day, my ambition has very much been perceived as aggressive or negative. And even when you say, you know, you've been ambitious across your platforms, I immediately in the back of my head go, oh, he thinks that's a bad thing, right? Because it's like I'm so pre-programmed to go, people perceive ambitious females negatively. But if you flip the script and say that a man has been ambitious or he's really putting himself out there, it's hardly and very rarely viewed as negative. So I think one of the things that I've really struggled with when working for other people in the past is my ambition has been mistaken for aggressiveness or not caring. And I think that I'm so deeply ambitious, not only for myself, but for my clients that I work with now, that comes out in a caring and empathetic and compassionate way. But I think that when people don't understand female ambition, or they've never been around ambitious women, they can very quickly jump to the conclusion that she's trying to insert herself. Like, you know, they see it as an intimidation thing. And I think that it's purely, I now know as a 34-year-old woman that it's not a me thing, it's a them thing. So for me, the craziest thing around ambition, there's so many things. I would say the craziest statement that I've probably had when it comes to ambition is, there's two. I'm going to share two stories with you. I was doing a guy that I worked with who was my direct report in an advertising agency that will remain unnamed because I have a heart. I was doing the job. He left. I was doing his job and my job for about 9 months before they decided to open the role up and hire externally. So I applied through the external route because I saw it on like a job seek board. I applied for the role, and then my managing director at the time pulled me aside and I said, I want to go for that role. And he said, why have you applied? And I was like, because I've been doing this role for the last 9 months. I know everything about it. I know the client inside out. Like, there is no better candidate than me. His response to me was, we need to balance out the gender in the team.
Whoa.
I resigned the next day, right? So there's that around ambition. It's like, you would never, like I would challenge your audience or anyone listening to this that if they have had a male that have experienced, oh, we need to put a female into this position, very rare, right? But I think that instance, yes, it was many years ago, but it does still happen to this day. And whilst they can't say it explicitly, that kind of bias or, best fit for the role, there are a lot of biases that come into play when finding a suitable replacement for a role. The other story that I will share with you is that in one of my later roles, I was responsible for a lot of new business, probably 80% of the new business that came into the agency at the time. And I took a proposal to my managing directors at the time and I said, look, I want you to give me a salary cut. I want you to restructure my salary and the way in which I get rewarded or incentivized or paid. I want you to pay me less as a base salary, but pay me for every job that I bring in. Because at the moment I'm being paid the same amount that someone doesn't have any responsibilities to bringing in new business. And they looked at it and they told me that if I wasn't happy with my current salary, then I should find somewhere else. And there was no conversation about it. There was no we could do this, blah, blah, blah. There was no conversation. Again, I resigned the next day. So I think that there has been this constant theme throughout my career where, I've aimed high, asked for what I want, shot my shot, so to speak, and just been met with a closed door or a no. So I think the only natural thing looking back at the progression of my career is to open my own door, and that was part of the reason that I started my own business.
Very much the entrepreneurial way. And that comes with some heavy responsibility as well. Another angle on the perspective of those two scenarios that you've just spoken about, like the one about we need to balance the gender more, that blows me away because I've actually experienced almost the opposite of that, where it's it's mega cool to employ a lot of females. And there's a lot of, in my sector in real estate, and I've seen a lot in recruitment, we're an all girl team and they're just so proud of that. I can't imagine a male team going, we're all male. Did it just be like, you dickhead?
Literally. I get asked that a lot.
It's cool to be pro-female. And it's but I actually believe that that there needs to be a balance of it. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be a 50-50 balance. It's a balance of where the skills are unmet in the organisation.
100%. And I think I actually shared a post a few months ago which pissed a lot of people off because I said that I don't think that females should be put in leadership positions just because they're female. As a female, I think that is slightly controversial because people are like, you should be a girl's girl. And I am a girl's girl. I'll be the first to say the best word about someone that's good at their job, whether they're male or female. But I think that women being put into positions of leadership shouldn't happen because there is a quota. It should happen because they're great at what they do. In the same way that men shouldn't be put into positions of leadership, or any position for that matter, unless they're great at what they do and they're the best candidate for the role at the time. Now, I have a very female-dominated team. Do I only hire females? No. Do I naturally attract more females in my business because of how I talk, what I talk about, the values that I hold? Absolutely. But we have men that work for us and love working for us. So I think that there's I think I talk about this all the time, the idea of creating a female-only thing actually, I believe, does more harm than good to creating that gender equality and closing the pay gap because you're excluding men from the conversation. You're creating even more of a gap between men and women when you create female-only things. It's kind of like incentives that I see for, International Women's Days and things like that are women-only events. And it's we need to involve men in these conversations. This is not a women or men problem. This is a human society problem. And if we don't have both sides of the spectrum in that conversation, we're never going to win.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I reckon it is a real challenge. I'm a really big fan of meritocracy or merit-based, but it's a lot harder to install than people think. I've been down the path several times with internally with sales businesses where leads are given on a merit basis. And you can have a black and white reason that constitutes merit. It might be performance with that kind of property type. It might be a client avatar that you do well with. It might be a geography. It could be the response time, the service levels, the reviews. You can make it black and white. And yet still it's very easy for people to say, that's not fair. That person got that instead. And it's almost like it's easier to complain about the way someone else has chosen something that it is to participate in the process of making things level and merit-based. And that sort of segues me to something that popped in my mind as you were speaking about ambition. Like, what do you think would happen if the world just treated women's ambition as normal, just as ambition?
I think we would have a lot more successful businesses in the world. I think that if women's ambition was just treated as ambition, we would have a lot more successful teams that exist in the world.
Yeah.
I think, though, that goes without saying that that's not just for women. I think that is for women and men, that if we treat people's ambition, that it's not got an ulterior motive, it's not coming, from any other place than them wanting to do great or to kick their own personal goals. Like, I talk about this all the time with my team and people that are friends of mine that own businesses. And it's like, if one of your team members has a personal goal that doesn't sit around what they do for work, I think that's fucking great. Because I think that the idea that they can have something that drives them that may or may not be related to work is great. And as an employer, you should be tapping into the thing that drives them, whether it's personally or professionally, to help them get the most out of themselves. And every employer that has an employee or a contractor or somebody getting the most out of themselves, they're going to benefit from it because they're going to love coming into work because they're going to be like, this person helps me get to where I want to be, right? You can't lose when you encourage ambition. You cannot lose.
That's a pretty strong sentiment you've got there around that. Have you ever had an example where someone's had a lot of ambition outside of their career that's actually taken over their ability to perform well in their role?
Not with my team, but what I will share is a story of one of my friends, Sophie Hood. She owns Soul Tonic, which is an incredible Korean pear hangover beverage.
Yeah.
I love her and I love what she's doing. She used to work for big corporates, EY, Red Bull. Red Bull was where she finished before she then transitioned to go full-time for her business. And I think that it's a really nice story that I share with a lot of people. I've spoken with Sophie on a number of panels. We are friends and we chat. She was on my podcast, but we talk about this all the time in the sense that she had a really transparent conversation with Red Bull about the fact that she was going to go on to Gordon Ramsay's Food Stars show and promote a product that was not Red Bull, that was hers, in the drinks category, right? And that could have gone one of two ways, right? It could have been like, absolutely, you're not doing that. You'll be fired tomorrow. Here's your 4 weeks notice. Or they could have sat there and been like, you know what? Go do that. Because now that she only speaks highly about leaving Red Bull and how gracious they were and how they actually still reach out to her to do contracting work and things like that. So I think that when you have and you support somebody that's ambitious, like I said, you can't lose. And I think that whether they're growing with you or they're growing with somebody else, it doesn't matter. Because if they grow to the point where they're like, I've got nothing more to give this business, they'll go on and do something else with someone else or by themselves, but they'll have nothing bad to say about you. And they'll only be your biggest advocate because you've helped them get to where they've got to. So I think that far too often we see it all the time with personal brands and growing personal brands in businesses. We do a lot of work with the Big Four bank, insurance companies, all those very traditional structured companies. And they go, well, what if they get so well known that they're going to go off and leave and go and work for somebody else or go and work for themselves? And I was like, if you are worried about empowering your team to post about what they do for work or what they're passionate about online, and your number one concern is that they're going to leave, you got a bigger problem than them posting about their brand. If you create a space where they can grow and then they get to the ceiling of that space and they can't grow any further, you actually can't offer them anything that would keep them here. Not money, not more days off, not anything. So it's like, actually, if you help those people grow to the point where they then go on and do their own thing, they'll be your biggest brand advocates. So I think that, I think the more you stifle someone's ambition, the more it will backfire on you.
Yeah, look, I'm really pro this conversation as far as openly talking about someone's ambition inside and outside their direct career. And I suppose the the statement I'll make that goes out to employees that are being like this is be fully transparent about it.
100%.
Like, because I have seen examples of where people have, like, for example, there's certain sports that just are really consuming, right? I've had people that have been like really big at polo cross and you know, like dressage horses, and others that are into like heavy duty swimming, like really where you're training for hours and hours and hours on end. And if they miss their routine, they feel like shit, right? So they need their routine.
Yep.
But then at the same time, if they don't perform very well during the day before they go for their captain collar day of having training in the morning and training in the after, and they kind of swan about a bit during the day, the employer has a challenging time then supporting their endeavor of their ambition when during the day they haven't really given their part. So I think that like transparency is where it all helps, because if someone says, look, these are the things that I really need in my life, and are you willing to support them as an employer? And the employer goes, yes. That's the moment where the employer needs to go, as long as during the day you commit to this. 100%. And if you don't make that happen, you've got to find time to do that somewhere else, because we're going to give you that time.
100%.
And I think it's really good to be able to have that, because then you're looking at what's a fixed immovable object and what's flexible.
Totally.
And taking ownership, responsibility, accountability for making up your part of the equation, because it just doesn't balance. There's no point continuing on and just hiding. If the business is not making money or margin off the work that you're doing, then you're actually sucking everyone and the customers of the business down by having your own thing. So I think it can be done in collaboration.
Totally. I also think it's really important, like obviously that conversation around transparency goes both ways, right? It's like for an employer to expect their team to be transparent with them, they've got to be transparent back. You know, when you're making cuts across the business and you're not being transparent as to why those cuts are being made, how the fuck do you expect any of your team to be transparent with you, right? In the same way, I had a conversation with somebody that works for us recently, and she's going through a bit of a transformative stage. She's young. She's just dropped out of uni. She's made the decision that she's like, uni's not for me. And we've had a number of conversations where I'm like, you need to figure out what's a priority for you. Is this a priority, this industry, doing what you want to do, important for you? Or is it more important that you explore other things before you then make a decision as to what's important for you? Because you can't do it all, right? And I think that one thing that if you are having those conversations around things that make, you know, that you're passionate about outside of work or you're ambitious about outside of work, if you make them work for you and there's that mutual respect between employer and employee, it works. But you also can't juggle 5 plates at once. Yeah. You can't, and it's just physically impossible. So I think when you try and put, you know, I talked about this the other day on my TikTok, it's like, is multitasking like a fad or like a myth, or is the ultimate flex being able to do one thing for a period of time? Because I think that we build up multitasking to be this superpower, especially as women. And actually, I think I've learned over the last few years that multitasking is actually the thing that lets a lot of people down because they end up doing lots of things very averagely. And I'm aware that averagely isn't a word, but like I think that if you're trying to do too much, you end up doing nothing at all. And that can be said for marketing your business, scaling a business, employing people for your business, but also personally. If you're trying to do too much, there will be something that gets dropped and you won't have control over what gets dropped. So figuring out your priorities in terms of ambition and where you want to put all of your energy and fuel and ambition into is really important.
Yeah, what's coming up for me there is there's an overarching direction in what you're doing. So I've been accused before of having too many fires burning or spitting too many plates. And at any given time, there's enough truth in that I'm not going to debate that one point. But I think the misunderstood thing is that I've always had an overarching direction of where I wanted to take my personal career and my group of companies. And it's really this whole ethos of property concierge where we look at every client avatar as a customer rather than tenants and buyers. Well, they don't pay us directly, so they'll just get treated like shit, which is the common way in sell side and owner side real estate, which is the majority of Australia, unfortunately. And that's not bagging out any of my esteemed colleagues that do really well. But like, unfortunately, there's just so many people that just jump on and go, what are we going to do? Just get listings, that's it. So
same as the marketing industry.
Same as the marketing industry.
Yeah.
Get accounts. That's all you got to do,
That's all
right?
you got to do. Get as many people through the door, look after them for as long as they're happy, do the bare minimum, and then when they decide to leave, it's fine because we've got extras.
Yeah,
and I hate it. It's honestly the number one reason why I started my business, because I think that it is really hard to build a relationship with people when you're lying to them. And especially with businesses that have huge markups on deliverables and things like that, or they're trying to cover 9 people's salaries with the one account, but there's actually only 2 people working on that account.
Yeah.
It becomes this idea of smoke and mirrors, and this idea of, what can we sell them versus what we're actually delivering them. And then there's just this huge gap of trust, which then begins to deteriorate a relationship because you're essentially lying to a client. So I hated the idea that I had to lie to clients about markups that weren't disclosed in retainers and things like that. And that's why I was like, it can't be that hard to do it well and do it honestly. And I think that that's where we kind of see a lot of clients that come to us from bigger agencies, and they go, we were let down, we were overpromised, underdelivered, etc. And then it's a huge part of our job the first 3 to 6 months is actually getting their trust back, making them feel safe, making them feel like we're not going to take advantage of them, making sure that we would spend their budget the way that we would spend our money. And I think that, it's not, I don't think you're alone in that, in the sense that, that's pretty evident across most industries, to be fair.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's, like the real estate sector is a very low trust industry, and we could go into a million reasons why that, but yeah, no doubt that there's been people in your industry also that have helped people feel burned and then helping them peel out of that. And it's it reminds me of something that you've spoken about before, that you wrote, I work because I need to, emotionally, mentally, creatively. What's the difference between working because you have to work or because there's a fire inside you? Because I hear that fire coming out with this, I hate, I must go and do my own thing.
I want to be really clear and say that I don't just work because I love it, right? Like, I've got bills to pay. Everyone has bills to pay. I'm in a very privileged position where I can make enough that I can afford the lifestyle that I have. And not everyone has that privilege. So I want to caveat that first, in the sense that I work because I have to, but I also love what I do. And I love that I have the opportunity to explore those desires of building a business and building something bigger than myself every day that I turn up for work. I think fundamentally what drives me when it comes to building is the desire to help. And I always talk about this idea of, like, I always thought that I've dabbled in, personal training and all of those things. And I loved all of those things because they had this through line that was helping other people. And I love the idea of helping other people. I love the idea of helping people understand that marketing and social media and personal branding really isn't this complicated beast that the world makes it out to be. And it's very similar to the health and fitness industry, in the sense that, 99% of diets and things that will help you lose weight that exist in the world today are based on a calorie deficit, right? But they're just disguised in this like wonderful, low carb or, keto or, all of those different things that ultimately, bottom line, they're creating calorie deficit, right? And marketing, social media and personal branding are exactly the same. There are so many people out there that have a particular view or overcomplicate things, because overcomplicating things from a marketing psychology standpoint makes it easier for people to buy from you because they don't understand it. Financial advisors, real estate, banking, like all of those things that people go, investing, I can't, it's too much for me to understand or to take all of this information that exists in the world. I'm just going to pay somebody else to do it. And I hate that, because I think that so many small businesses fail because they don't have access to the right advice when it comes to marketing, social media and personal branding. And or that advice is so expensive that they use all their money to invest in that, and then they run short and there's no longevity of that support or advice to give them long-term support that helps them grow.
Yeah.
And I think that with that in mind, I just my whole life has been like centered around wanting to help people and wanting to help people understand things, wanting to spend time with people to, make their lives easier or whatever it is. So I think that if I can, with my business, fundamentally help as many people as possible to understand how marketing, social media, and personal branding can work for them on really, really easy, basic level, terms, then that's when I will have succeeded. And I think that it goes with any industry, real estate, investing, all of those things. People look at it and go, oh, that's too hard. I'm just going to pay someone else to do it. And they've not done their research, and therefore they get sucked down this path that's like they don't know any better.
Yeah, and they get resentment.
100%. And I always say you only have to know 1% more than the person that you're dealing with to be considered an expert. Terrifying.
It's a pretty thin margin, isn't it?
It's terrifying, right? And it's like, okay, if someone's sitting there talking about investing, sprouting all of these like buzzwords and, even in real estate, it's like, oh, these are, good return on investment, and they start talking about the things that you don't know about. If you know a little bit more than the person you're dealing with, they're considered an expert to you. You don't interrogate it because they know more about it than you do. So my aim is to kind of get rid of all of the bullshit that exists in the marketing landscape and really simplify it for people.
Oh, it seems like a pretty good reason to get into your own show, and obviously born out of seeing things not working the way that you feel is kind of right, I suppose is the way to say it there. So here you are now, 34, 2 businesses. One is a product business, and we'll get into that in a moment. But Gambit Collective is the name of your marketing agency. And one of the things that I saw come through a lot when I became aware of it is like the theme of pay as you go. Can you just unpack that a little bit? So, because a lot of our audience are entrepreneurial, they're business owners already, or they might be in a position in their company where they could ask their boss to say, hey, you should consider this.
Sure.
How does pay-as-you-go work in Gambit Collective?
So pay-as-you-go, put really simply, is you pay for what you need when you need it. I really hate the idea of having huge retainers that, first of all, I'll caveat the fact that retainers for me in any business, I think are lazy. It's a lazy way of working. Yes, it's a really easy moneymaker, but it's lazy. It makes people lazy. It makes the service provider lazy. It makes the person that they're working with lazy because they're like, oh, well, I'm committed to X, so it's just fine. They don't interrogate different ways of doing things. They don't look at things as intensely as if they were paying for things as they need them. So what we do when we work with clients, typically we have clients that come to us that say, hey, we need help with, let's say, social media, or we need help with organic content, or we need help building a website, whatever it is. We then go, okay, we do a kickoff call or a discovery call with them, and then we actually map out their whole plan for them. And we're like, we know you came to us for a website, but have you considered X, Y, and Z as well? Because we don't just deliver what you want, we deliver what you need. And I think that one of the big things is that if you go to a web developer and you go, I need a new website, he'll be like, great, new client. Or she'll be like, great, new client. If you go to a content agency and they're like, we need organic content, they're like, great, you've come to the right place, we'll do that. But they won't ever sit there and be like, oh, have you thought about building your SEO presence on your website? Or have you thought about, if you've come to me for a website, have you thought about actually housing that information that you need on social media before you build your website, because you actually don't need to spend 10 grand on a new website just yet. So we actually zoom out, we look at the client circumstances and their objectives. What do they want to achieve in the next 3 to 6 months, 3 to 9 months, 3 to 12 months. And then we go, look, if your money was our money, these are the things that are critical, these are the things that are important, and these are the things that are nice to have. And we present that back to them.
How often do you think that what you present as critical is different than what they came to you for?
Pretty much all the time. Pretty much all the time. And like, I get it, right? Like I understand why, because so many people will go, oh, that person has a flashy website. That's what's missing from my business, and therefore I need to invest in a flashy website. Or that person, the founder, is posting on LinkedIn all the time. That's what I need to do. Now, there's no argument whether you need to do it or not. I think the one thing that I want to be really clear about is that 95% of our clients that we work with are small to medium-sized businesses. They don't have unlimited cash flow. They have cash flow that is extremely inconsistent, and therefore they need somebody that will sit there and prioritize things for them. Yeah, a sexy website is great. Is it going to bring you leads? If you're bringing in all your leads currently through social media, probably not, right? If it's the other way around where you've got people ringing off the hook and you don't have a website and you don't have anyone inquiring through social media, then yeah, probably investing in a single page website to direct traffic or get people to fill out details on that website is probably really important. But do you need a 10-page website? Probably not. So what we like to do with our client is work with what we call the MVP, which is the minimum viable product. What do they need in order to create cash? Mm-hmm. What do they need in order to bring in leads? And then what are all the nice to have things or important things that are not necessarily critical that we then fill out around that? And I think that that's really important because people typically don't know that. They're only coming to you because they've seen someone talk about the need for it or the importance of it. They've seen a business that's similar to theirs that has something the same. So I think having that broad marketing knowledge that we present back to them actually opens their eyes into a lot of things. We have had clients turn around and be like, no, just build me the website. And we're like, okay, cool. Don't say we didn't tell you so, right?
Yeah.
But in that case, we've done our bit to help. If they've taken that on board, no problems. If they haven't, no problems. But our number one business value is to help. So we need to be helpful, whether they take that advice or not.
Yeah. Look, if that's what your value is and you're behaving in accordance with that, you'll attract people who want that kind of guidance.
Totally.
And the people that don't go with it, they might still appreciate it, I imagine. I like to always come back to the theory of constraints, which I learned about when I was doing engineering. And it's basically like a system will grow, a system of any kind, a business, a relationship, the thermal temperature you can heat something to.
Yeah.
It'll grow until it hits its first constraint and grow no more, until that constraint is removed. And then it'll keep growing until it hits its next one. So if you can figure out what you're actually trying to grow towards, because you can grow debt, but if you're trying to grow your revenue or if you're trying to grow your customer base, well, what's the thing holding us back from that? And that's where you point your focus. 100%. And it sounds like you're applying that a bit when you bring a client in.
Totally. And I think, like I said, it's, you know, if you had infinite cash, you would do all of them at once. But the reality is that most businesses don't have infinite cash and they don't have consistent cash. And so being really particular with where they invest their money from a marketing standpoint is important. And a lot of them are family-owned businesses or that's their livelihood, right? Like, you know, that business succeeding is whether their kid can go to school next year or, you know, there's all of these things that come in with that. And I think that being able to see a client for more than just a paycheck is really important. Yeah.
Well, speaking of paychecks, actually, you've got some views that we've talked about already about how hard it can actually be to build wealth and to run a business and to be all of these things that you are encouraging others to be if they want to be it, such as ambitious. What do you think the biggest lie is that we tell young people about building wealth?
I think the biggest lie that we tell young people about building wealth is that it comes in physical things. I think one thing that I've learned over the years, and I've been really kind of transparent and honest about this, is that wealth to me when I was 20 looked like big houses, fast cars, lots of holidays, like bougie holidays, all of that. And wealth now to me has a very different meaning, and so does success. Wealth to me means that I have time to spend with the people that I love. Wealth means that I have a business or, you know, a job that supports that lifestyle that I want to create. And it's not necessarily about having, you know, the biggest house or, you know, the fastest car or anything like that, or the labels or the designer stuff that, you know, you invest in. I think it's, for me, about creating a life that gives you the freedom that you want. And I had a really kind of, I wouldn't say kind of, I'd call it like an aha moment, like 2 and a bit years ago, which was like 3 years into my business, right? And I'd built this business. I had quite a few people working with me at the time. And I just realized that I was like, wait, I started this business to be able to do things the way that I wanted to. And that's not to say that my way is the right way or the only way, but I wanted to build a business that supported the life that I wanted, which meant that I spent more time helping people, doing the things that I love doing, and spending time with my clients. But I had built a business system that was all centered around other people helping my clients and not me, right? Which I think can work when you're trying to scale a business, but it doesn't work from a quality output standpoint, right? I would rather, and I kind of came to this realization that I would rather a smaller group of clients that I can help grow over a long period of time, that have loyalty, trust, love what I do, are our biggest ambassadors, right? Than literally trying to find 10 new clients every month because we weren't really prioritizing what the client wanted and how we could help them. So I actually shifted my entire business model. I then now look after all of the new business and client management because that's what I love. That's what I get a kick out of. That's what fills my cup. Dealing with my clients every day. Some people fucking hate it. I love it. And now I have an incredible group of specialists that I work with that help me do the doing. So executing the work, coming up with campaigns, managing email and web builds and things like that. So I think being able to flip it that way, I'm more fulfilled and happy, which gives me more time to focus on the things that I love doing. And also it makes me a better person at work. It makes me a better person at home. But it also then means that my team can do what they do best, right? Which is the executing side of things. It's the doing. They didn't like managing people. They didn't like talking to people. So we removed that element from that. So I think for me, wealth and success has very much changed the definition of. I think at the moment, as I enter, I'm early 30s. I like to say I'm still late 20s, but
if you look at 30s as the first half is early and the second half is late, then you're fine.
Yeah, I'm late 20s, so we're good. Late 20s, early 30s, whatever. I think it's changed, and right now my focus is on creating a life that I never need to take a holiday from, and creating an environment that financially I can be a little bit more free, and investing my money and time in the right things.
Yeah, I'm hearing some strong resonance there that your definition of wealth broken down is that you've got the freedom to be doing the kind of things that you want to enjoy the standard of life you want to live.
100%. And I think that there's so much rhetoric at the moment online around, invest in properties, or like invest in shares and make millions of dollars a month and blah, blah, blah. But there are so many people that I know, men and women, that have stepped down from really, really senior positions because they don't want the responsibility anymore. They don't care about the paycheck anymore. They just want a life that they're happy living, where they can do things for themselves. They can spend time with their kids or their partner or their dog. And I think I'm really lucky in the sense that I love working, and there's no doubt about it, but I love doing what I'm doing in order to then spend some more time doing things with the people that I love, whether that's my family, my partner, my friends. And for me, I would rather that any day of the week over a bigger paycheck.
Yeah, well, I actually feel like there's going to be more people heading in that direction as AI becomes a bigger part of the conversation now.
Agreed.
And we're going to cover that in rapid fire because we are coming to rapid fire now.
Love.
Where people are deciding the existence they want to have first, then they're going searching for things that might support that. Then they're learning the things they need to do in order to do that, trying it on for size. If it's not playing out, they keep iterating.
Totally.
And because they're not locked into a convention of needing to have a job for a certain amount of time to prove their worth to someone else, maybe a voice in the background they heard from when they were going to school or something like that, I think that comes with a little bit of a kind of warning label, though, that if you flip the script too many times, you may never actually get into a state of momentum or flow and actually experience what great could be like in that world. So I'm just going to leave that one hanging there because it's not the main thrust of it. So we're going to do some I'll throw some statements at you.
Okay.
Because you're very good off the cuff and you are unfiltered. You're
Don't jinx me. Don't jinx me.
No, it's all right. So give us your honest, unfiltered take on this. Okay. Hustle culture is?
Hustle culture is dead.
Okay, cool. People
or a waste of energy.
Or a waste of energy.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Good continuation there. People who say, I don't have time to start a business.
Will always fail. I think the biggest thing I see all the time is people saying, I want to start a business. And you're like, okay, cool. be prepared to work 24/7. Like you're giving up a 9 to 5 to work 24/7. And if you don't have that, don't bother. Like I think there's two parts to that, and I've hijacked your quick fire, but there's two parts to that. It's like if you don't have the time to start a business, you won't have the time to run a business, right? You just won't. And I think that there's such a big misconception that social media has largely glorified that starting a business is like, you slow mornings or, you get to spend your day training at lunchtime or doing all the things that you want to do. And there's a really, really, true point to that in a sense that I've 5 years in have been able to create the days and weeks that I love. But I work Monday to Sunday.
Yeah.
And I don't post the 10 hours a day that I'm tipper-tappering on my laptop because it's not sexy and it's not exciting. So I think that, I think if you're already making excuses not to start a business, you shouldn't start it because you'll continue to make excuses.
I'm really glad you expanded on that because I think it's one of the most untalked about things.
100%.
There's one end of the spectrum of people who are already ultra successful. And like some of them I actually admire what they've done in business. Like you look at Alex Hormozi, I like his whole arc. He got burned 2 or 3 times, lost his dough, but then he showed everyone how he got back there. But he was unapologetic about what was most important to him. And work to him is his sport, and for me, I feel like that a little bit. Like creativity is one of my personal values. So as long as I'm working on something where I'm creating a model, a solution, a path forward, and I can use my creativity and my engineering, it's fine.
Yeah.
But if I'm just doing drudgery for the sake of paying the bills, I'll look for a creative way to create a better way for me to show up and add more value.
Totally.
Yet when you do talk about this, it's 18 hours a day, take it or leave it, like it's all in or nothing. I think that people see that and go, well, that's not me, so I'm just going to have a lifestyle business. But they don't realize the lifestyle business has got to be engineered. You've got to build it to that. You don't get an investment property without getting a deposit and paying down the interest a bit, or at least getting the equity to a point where it can now pay for itself with, income that comes in from the tenant.
Sure.
You don't get that from day one. You don't just go, here's your property, here's your business.
And I think it's really important to say as well that this idea that you can build a business with the same hours that you would work for somebody is so false. And I think I go back to this comment or quote that Emma Grede shared, and she talks about it all the time. If you want extraordinary output and you want to build a life that doesn't yet exist that you want for yourself, you have to have extraordinary input. Like it can't just be what you normally do, because if you put in what you normally do, you're going to get out what you normally get out. And I think that extraordinary output requires that extraordinary input. Agree.
All right, here's another one for you. So finish this one. The rise of AI replacing jobs.
The rise of AI replacing jobs is a fear-mongering tactic that I think that a lot of people choose to ignore, because I think that AI is a tool that every business should be using, but it will never be able to replace humans.
I like that.
And what I mean by that is that I did an audit of my business about 12 months ago where I was like, okay, what could a machine do? What could AI do? What could it help with? What can't it help with? And what can't it replace? One thing it cannot replace is my relationships with my clients. The conversations that we have, how I know them, how I know that it's their birthday or they've just had a baby or they've just lost their partner, whatever it is. That human connection you will never be able to get from a machine. So the things that it can do, let it do and train it up to do that. The things that it can't do, double down on that and do more of that. So the in-person stuff, meeting people in real life instead of doing it through Zoom, they're the things that an AI machine or large language model or AI agent or anything like that cannot do.
Yeah, and I think that list will keep getting updated as we become more aware. So one of the things that I've heard a lot of people say in service industries at conferences, I think the people that are making the statements from the stage aren't always the people who are most knowledgeable about what is already capable. You know what I mean? So
agreed.
I watched a really positive and uplifting episode of Cleo Abrams, Huge If True. And she has a positive future outlook. So I watched the Sam Altman interview, OpenAI founder, with Ted. And the British sort of interrogation style interviewer was just saying the same fear-mongering shit that's been on the front page of any rag for ages, right? But then Cleo comes in and she says, I want to hear your vision for the future. What are we talking here?
Yeah.
And when he starts talking about it, he's not saying that there's no chance of any risk happening, but he's saying these are the things that are already taking place. A lot of those things are things that people would have thought were not possible to replicate, and the good that is being done. So I think, empathy is one thing that we have as a human. AI can help us be more empathetic.
Absolutely.
But it's not replacing our empathy, because the empathy still needs to come from a human. But you can have an AI agent helping you be more empathetic by understanding more of the picture, retaining more knowledge about that person that you've asked it to retain.
Yeah, I don't think that it will replace jobs. It will replace some jobs. I don't think it will replace all jobs. And I think that people need to stop outsourcing their thinking to AI. They need to use it to help them with their thoughts and help them think deeper, but not to outsource the thinking. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, here's another one.
Okay.
Young people expecting work-life balance.
It doesn't exist. Work-life balance doesn't exist. I think it is all life. I don't think that work-life balance is a thing, because balance implies that it's always equal, and it's not. It's never equal. And that isn't just for business owners. That is for anybody. There will be weeks where you have to be really on at work, and perhaps your friendships or your relationships suffer as a result of it. Or perhaps you miss a couple of gym sessions because you're traveling with work. So therefore the balance is out. However, the priority is work for that week. The following week, you might be like, you know what, it's my partner's birthday. I'm going to spend 3 days in the afternoon doing stuff with him, or I'm going to go away for a long weekend. Your work may suffer a little bit as a result of it. But in that instance, you're prioritizing choosing your partner and what you want to do there. So I think that this idea of seeking balance will really fuck people up, because I think the idea of work-life balance is what is one of the biggest contributors to people's mental health issues, because they feel as though they've got to balance it all. And when they don't balance it all, they feel like they're doing something wrong. But I think that as a society, we have been fed this narrative that it can be balanced, and it won't ever be balanced. So I think that instead of looking at it as work-life balance, it's just life. Work is part of that. Relationships are part of that. Fitness and health is part of that, if that's what you're into. And there will be some weeks where you have to take from your cup and fill into work, and there's more in the work cup than there is in the personal cup. And then some weeks there are more in the friendships cup than there is the work cup. And that's okay, because that's life.
That is so similar to a song I actually wrote in my hip hop group. And it's funny, I never released it.
Yeah.
And it was called Work-Life Balance is a Myth. And it basically says, work-life balance is a myth. Work and life are the same thing. You didn't die when you clocked on today.
No.
And come alive when finishing.
Totally.
So
and I also hate the idea that people separate work and life. I think from a personal branding standpoint, some of the most prominent figures that people recognize and know and love and align with are people that share their whole selves.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying share your childhood traumas if you want to, but you don't have to. And I think that one of the biggest things I find when we're talking about personal brand building is that when you bring your whole self to work, and you talk about what you did on the weekend, or, what you spent time doing with your family, or what you do on a Thursday night or whatever, and you talk about that with the people that you work with, that's you bringing your whole self. You don't have to disclose everything, but bringing your whole self to work, not separating the two, ensures that you then have this 360 representation of you at work, because you at work should be who you are at home and behind closed doors and things like that. So I think that the more you try and separate the two, the more disingenuous you are, or like the lack of authenticity you have when showing up to work to be your true self. So I think that, separating the two, I think, can be really dangerous.
I think that's I've got personal history with that. When I got into professional services, because I'd come out of an engineering sort of trades background where it was pretty much you could be your full self.
Yeah.
And then I headed into white collar work, and everyone's like, look, don't talk about religion, don't talk about sex, sexual preferences, don't talk about teams you go for. Don't even really talk about something on the weekend if it could like throw someone off, because they're all clients and, you know, you don't want to sort of pigeonhole yourself. Now, it was bad advice, right? But I had to sort of live that to work that out. And I think one of the biggest challenges I had, particularly in my last 10 years, because I was winning so heavily in the, you know, the role I had as selling principal business owner, whatever you want to call it, is that the misunderstanding that goes on that when there's success and what looks like material wealth there, that's all you're about, because you've not said anything else that's important to you.
Totally.
And, you know, because I'd come from hip hop was like the other career I was considering. And I'm like, no, I'm going to stick with the business thing. I could just see it. It just felt like something I could give more to. It was more infinite and less like opinion driven. But I sort of hid that part of myself because it seemed like really edgy and alternate compared to this sort of clean cut sort of world. So, wow, we've had a really great conversation here. You've had some absolute pearls of wisdom, and it's I think I might even cue it that if someone wants to hear that song, I'm going to rip it out.
Oh, go for it. Like it needs to be the theme song of this.
We've got to get it on somehow. I'll talk to my amazing team. So just leave us with one thing for our audience here. What's one thing that you wish someone had told you before you started building that no one talks about?
Start before you're ready. Start before you're ready, and done is better than perfect. I think I was able to start and jump in or throw myself into it because I had such a supportive network. I had my incredible family, like my mum and dad. They provided this like safety net of like, do it, because if it doesn't work, we're here. And I'm really grateful to have had that position, because it kind of just gave me this complete I suppose it allowed me to ignore any kind of risk that would be associated with it. At the time, you know, I didn't have a mortgage. I don't have kids. You know, I wasn't in a relationship. So it allowed me to really just dive headfirst into it. But I think that I see so many people, in particular women, who go, I'm not going to start yet because I'm not 100% ready. And I would just say start before you're ready, because if you don't start, you'll never know. And you learn by doing. So you'll never know unless you start.
I like that. Well, what a great way to end this episode of Flow Zone. Hayley Westoby, thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.